Dad left, mom was an alcoholic. God, looking back, my childhood was depressing. Maybe not as depressing as some others. I wasn't molested, beside my uncle taking a photo of me in the shower once when I was 7. That was weird. I wasn't chained to a radiator, I wasn't starved, I wasn't frequently abused, negotiable. But my dad left when I was 2. My sister, who bullied me relentlessly when I was younger, who'd punched me on the bus and let middle schoolers drop books on my head when I was in kindergarten. We lived with my grandmother in a house that was, to say the least, a mess. Let's get this clear. We weren't hoarders. But a diagnosed ADHD 5-year-old, me, an alcoholic, a bipolar grandmother in her 70s, and a moody teenager were not, that's an understatement, good at cleaning house. The house was big and would have been beautiful if well kept. It wasn't. It smelt. There was usually trash everywhere. Playdates at my house were a no-go. Elementary school was lonely. God, it was so lonely. I had maybe 2 true friends, one at school and a neighbor whose house I'd visit frequently. I was the freak, the spaz, the girl who talked too much, the girl who was separated from the other kids and told by teachers, "You're just too stupid for this." Okay, to be fair, I was pretty horrible, I guess, but I had bad influences. Middle schoolers would curse around me, at me, on the bus. You know what I did one day in the lunch line because I was mad? I turned around and gave a girl the finger. A teacher saw and thought I was doing it to them. There was also another time where I had pushed someone for cutting me in line, and the next thing I knew, the girl was on the ground clutching her neck. Everyone claimed I choked her. I didn't. I was bullied for having a pink book bag, because femininity was such a horrible thing. My sister had joined in on the bullying. I remember swinging my book bag around and throwing it. Apparently, it hit this girl in my grade. I don't remember that. I relied on Barbies, stuffed animals, and imaginary friends for company. And I didn't see anything wrong with that. Why should I? Because they were real, right? Those adventures I went on with them happened, and of course they would never leave me. I spent a large portion of my childhood in my room. Or rooms, because at my house we switched rooms a lot. I remember hearing my mom yelling at Grandma and going into my room and moving my bed to block the door. I remember the tiny TV and the DVD player I had. And I remember turning on Jurassic Park because to a first grader at the time, that was real. Dinosaurs were alive. They were here. Dr. Alan Grant and Ian Malcolm were actual people, goddammit. And maybe they would take me to go see the dinosaurs. Then the kids at school told me that Jurassic Park was fictional and dinosaurs had not indeed been brought back to life. And I didn't believe them until 2nd grade. I used to think my dad was Ian Malcolm because Jeff Goldblum looked like how I remembered my dad. I loved my mom so much back then because I didn't realize anything was wrong with her. Just to avoid her when she started yelling, I held no personal grudges against her. It wasn't always Jurassic Park, all 3 movies. Sometimes it was Barbie or Land Before Time. At one point, it was the Hunger Games. I had a bow and arrow made of bamboo. My neighbor friend made it for me. They had bamboo trees growing in their backyard. God, at that time, that was so cool. Pretending to be Katniss Everdeen, that was a euphoric feeling. I was 7 when I realized my sister genuinely wasn't afraid to hurt me. I remember walking home from the bus stop one day with her and stopping to tie my shoe. I don't tie my shoes anymore. Not because of that. Maybe because of that. They get knotted and it's annoying. People tell me to tie my shoes constantly. I don't. She started walking, realized I stopped, grabbed my hair and pulled me across the street. Then she gave me a black eye to prove to the other middle schoolers that she was cool. I remember ignoring my mom's drunk yells and her calling for me downstairs. No, why would I be able to hear her over the dinosaur roaring in my room? Why should I put down my Barbies for her? I was 7 when I went to Seattle for the first time. I was even more lonely, honestly, because my dad, different dad than my sister, worked outside the baseball stadium selling magazines, and I would sit on the steps and wait for a shift to be over. But what was I really doing? God, I was exploring. I'd go off and talk to imaginary friends, and the one that would land outside the stadium in her own private jet. She was imaginary, so she could do that. I roamed down the apartment building halls, calling the fire escapes with my imaginary friends' apartments. I didn't even realize I was lonely. I love my dad, I do. He's tried his best and I'm so happy he's in my life now. even though he still lives in Seattle and I see him maybe a month out of the year now, if even. But Seattle was lonely. My uncle who lived with my dad wasn't a good man. He took advantage of my dad's hospitality. He made lewd comments, he took a photo of me while I was showering and called it a joke. I was 8 when my aunt on my mom's side made me start stacking wood for her. Oh God, I hated stacking wood. I hated that her house, with her and my extreme Christian right-wing uncle, made me and my sister go over there and stack wood. I hated that stacking wood for the stupid fire pit and stupid fireplace was where I would spend my summer before and after going to Seattle. I hated doing that in the heat. I hated doing that in the cold. And if we didn't do it right, we'd be up all night and wouldn't be allowed dinner until we finished. I hated stacking wood. I was 9 when I realized my mother had a problem with alcohol. She started drinking that funny tasting and smelling substance and got really weird. And then she started yelling. But that was okay because I'd go to my room and watch Jurassic Park and play with my Barbies, right? I remember her threatening my grandma, threatening my sister, threatening me. Then I stole her phone and barricaded myself in the bathroom because that was the only room in the house with a lock. I remember the first time I called the cops on my mother. They came and they couldn't really do anything. They told her if they had to come back, she'd be arrested. I was so scared I called my aunt and she came and picked us up. As much as I resented I have towards them for, child labor and a bit of child abuse, for different reasons than stacking wood, it was better than staying with my mother. Most of the time, Grandma would come with. Sometimes she refused to be kicked out of her own house. We had bed bugs. That was an understatement. God, when I had brought bed bugs down from Seattle when I came back, we had them bad. It was horrible. We had to tear up our carpet, had to throw away our furniture. Me, my sister, and my grandmother slept on air mattresses and old chairs that my aunt had given to us. Keep them, she said. You see, my issue at the time wasn't the bed bugs. Personally, that was the least of my problems. A few months prior to the start of the bed bug ordeal, my best friend at school, my only friend at school, introduced me to that stupid internet meme, Slender Man. Me in 3rd grade didn't really think of it as a meme. 9-year-old me was convinced he was real and there was no doubt about that. I couldn't sleep. I prayed every night with my grandmother. I didn't pray before that. I don't pray now. Because that tall, thin man with tentacle arms was coming to get me. My mom had a boyfriend and was going back to college. She was calming down on her drinking. I had spent most of my time at her boyfriend's house with her, since she had basically moved in with him. Those were some happy memories. He was a good cook, had a nice backyard in which I could shoot at the ground with my new plastic bow and arrow. The only time I was ever at home was on Wednesdays, when my mom had a late class. And then my mom got arrested. She called into her school, drunk, because she had not finished a paper that was due the next day, and claimed my brother was going to bomb the school. She doesn't have a brother, 3 sisters, 2 of which I've never met, no brother. It was a week after the Boston Marathon bombing. I didn't go to Seattle that summer. She spent a month in jail. I spent the last of the school year at my own house, going to my aunt's on the weekends. Then when summer came around, we practically lived at my aunt's house. I got a scholarship offer for a Girl Scout camp. I didn't take it because my impending fear of Slender Man had not faded away yet. I went from praying every night with my grandma to praying with my aunt. I remember visiting Mom in jail. I remember crying. I remember my aunt taking us for ice cream afterward to cheer us up. Maybe my aunt wasn't all that bad, just my uncle. Mom got out. I got a 3DS for my 10th birthday. It was midnight blue. God, I remember how much time I spent on that. My sister threw a hissy fit over me getting one, and she had one a week later. Mom got drunk the night of my birthday. We still had no permanent furniture. That was an issue. We got some, not all of it at once. I was only on my air mattress in a different room, playing a game. Mom was drinking. She yelled at me and dragged me into the living room, claiming she wanted me to be with family. My 10th birthday tied worst birthday ever with my 9th. I fell off a swing in Seattle and broke my arm. 4th grade, Mom went to rehab. She took me with her, as there was a special program where you could bring your children along. I was the only fourth grader there, besides the babies whose mothers didn't have anyone who could watch them. That was during the time where I really started liking books. I was reading The Hunger Games, they took my DS, and I had nothing better to do. My imaginary friend had long faded away, and my interest in Barbies disappeared. My only real companion was the stuffed T-Rex I had taken with me. Mom got kicked out of rehab within 2 weeks. She broke a rule. Talk to someone while she was being shunned. She called them crazy. I lived with my Nana, Dad's side, for 2 weeks. I missed school. I finished the first and second Hunger Games book in those 2 weeks. Then I found out that I was being sent off to Seattle to live with my dad. I was gonna finish 4th grade up there. As a reward for finishing the entire Hunger Games series, my mom had given me a tablet. It was an Android, off-brand of something, but I didn't care because I had a tablet. I read online, I wrote, I started realizing that I really liked writing. I had friends up there. I grew even more passionate about reading and writing. I loved going to my library because of books, but also because of the Wi-Fi that my dad didn't have at the time with my dad. Then my tablet got stolen. I left it next to my book bag while I went to the bathroom. My dad bought me another one. He surprised me with it. I came back 6 months later, my mom telling me I would be going to a different school. My old school knew about my mom's drinking problem. She didn't like that. I lost contact with all the friends I had made in basically my lifetime up to that point. The neighborhood friend had to move. I lost touch with the Seattle kids. 5th grade was back to being incredibly lonely. My Nana died. It was her last Christmas. It was devastating. In 6th, I had one true friend, and she left school and I never saw her again. No one wanted to be friends with the tall, big girl who was called King Kong. Not until 7th grade is when I realized I had a few people that liked me. But I had books. I had those stupid Jurassic Park movies, and I finally had a phone. I'm a sophomore in high school now, and I don't rely on books or Jurassic Park or imaginary friends or Barbies for company now because I have friends. Mom still drinks, and my sister is still, in all terms I could think of, a bitch. Dad still lives in Seattle. He was here for Christmas. I didn't sleep well. I grew up lonely. I didn't realize it at the time because, well, who was I to doubt my imagination? But I was painfully alone. So alone that I relied on extensions of my imagination for company. Because the teacher said, this girl is too wild to be with kids her age. She shouldn't talk. Because my mom was so drunk off her ass, I isolated myself without even realizing I was isolated. Refusing to cook the kind of food my husband. So let me preface this by saying that I was overweight when I met my husband. Also, before I started working from home, I, a female of 28, didn't really care about how healthy our meals were. I cooked comfort food most of the time with little thought regarding calories, and my husband, a male who's 41, loved everything I made. I think it's part of the reason he fell for me, to be honest. Since I started working from home, I now have an extra 2 hours a day as I'm no longer commuting and have used it to start exercising. My family has a history of high blood pressure, and it hit home for me just recently that it's time to get in shape. My husband was supportive at first, but as I've started to really lose weight, he's become less so. He's always bringing home junk food, which would be fine if he wanted it just for himself, but he tries to pressure me into eating it as well. My husband is a mailman and walks 15 miles a day, so he's in better shape than I am. His dinners used to consist of 2 or 3 helpings of whatever unhealthy food I made that day. Lately, I've been making healthier choices when it comes to our food. My husband can't cook to save his life, and the grocery shopping and all cooking is done by me. When I say healthier choices, I don't mean tofu and kale. I mean that I've started cooking our favorite foods but with healthier alternatives, like using 1% milk instead of heavy cream and adding veggies. Since I've started doing this, my husband has doubled his efforts in trying to get me to stop working on my health. He still has his normal 2 to 3 helpings, so the food can't taste that bad. It's gotten to the point where I don't even share with him anymore if I reach a new goal because he gets all surly. It all came to a head last night when I made a casserole and added broccoli and used a lighter sauce. He flipped out and said I'm trying to push my get better looking agenda off on him, even though my efforts to get in shape have nothing to do with how I look. He then accused me of being sick of him and using my workouts as an excuse to get away from him, which is completely untrue. I enjoy our time together, and my workouts right now are only 40 minutes because it's all I can manage, so I'm not leaving him alone that long. He then said that he would drop it if I would go back to cooking and eating the way I used to. I told him that he was more than welcome to cook the way he wanted, but he refused and left in a huff. While he was gone, I called my sister to try to get some perspective. She sided with my husband and said I was being TA by not providing him with the fuel he needs for his physically intensive job, even though the cooking I'm making now is more nutrient dense than it was before. And that just because cooking was one of my tasks in the relationship didn't mean I should be the only one with any say in how things are made. I'm a 19-year-old female. My 22-year-old boyfriend does not want me being friends with my guy friends. I'm a tomboy girl who plays a lot of video games and has a tendency to get along better with guys because of this, and of my more laid-back personality. I have a really hard time making friends that are girls. Most of the friends I did have would lie and backstab and spread secrets about me, and 9 times out of 10, I would have a big falling out because I would eventually get mad or upset and not be able to take it anymore, and everyone would end up hating me and shunning me from the group of girls. So I have a hard time trusting girls because of this. My friend group consisted of me, another girl, and 3 guys. My friend who is a girl, we will call her Amy, I have known since high school. She introduced me to one of the guys, who in turn introduced me and Amy to the rest of the group. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 10 months now. Since the beginning, he has known I have close guy friends. In the beginning, he put on the front that he was okay with this, but gradually became more expressive about how this bothered him and upset him. Out of the group, I was closest with Amy and one of the guys, we will call Kevin, and I talked to the both of them regularly through texting. Kevin has helped me through a lot and has talked me through more problems than I could think of. To me, it was important that my boyfriend met Amy and Kevin because they were 2 of the most important people in my life at the time. When Kevin was scheduled to take leave, my boyfriend absolutely refused to meet him, told me he would never like him and that he would never be okay with our friendship. His reasoning was that guys and girls can never just be platonically friends. I even tried to explain how Kevin had feelings for Amy and everything to try and show him Kevin was not interested in me. After a while, I began to feel guilty and beat myself up over having guy friends, and eventually began nitpicking the things I didn't like in a way to convince myself to not be their friend. At the end, I didn't reach out to them as much, and they hardly, if ever, reached out to me. Fast forward to a couple months later, and I am working at this new job and trying to make friends. I'm still in touch with Amy, though not very close since she is opinionated and I often do not agree with her opinions, which in turn causes her to get mad at me. I'm pretty much seeking out girls at this point to be friends with, because I do genuinely want friends that are girls so they could relate with me to the things my guy friends couldn't, but also because I know it wouldn't put a strain on my relationship. Where I work, not many girls work there, so I tried to make friends with who I could, and lo and behold, they are all guys. It makes me hate myself because I feel terrible for only being friends with guys, and I know it drives my boyfriend crazy, and I want nothing more than for him to be happy, but I just cannot have friends. I ended up becoming close to a guy we will call Dale, and now he has become practically my only friend and the only person I really talk to other than my boyfriend. Well, my boyfriend tried to put on the front that he was okay with it and he was going to meet him, but the day before he met him, my boyfriend got upset and told me he didn't like it. I tried my best to comfort him, explaining how I only have eyes for him and that I will never be friends with the guy if I genuinely thought they would be disrespectful towards my relationship. But in the end, I basically agreed to not talk to him anymore, or at least as much. Well, this weekend, my boyfriend had a plan to go hang out with his friends for the weekend about an hour away, and usually it's just him and 2 other guys, but now it's his normal 2 friends and 2 more guys he usually doesn't hang out with. They like to drink and go to bars and clubs typically, but they can't do any of that because of the coronavirus. They also used to smoke weed together, but since my boyfriend has quit, just his friends do it even when he's there. I have never been a big drinker or partier and have been in bad situations where people forced drinking and weed on me. I don't mind drinking with my boyfriend to cut loose a little, but my boyfriend never wants to drink with me. This has made it all that much harder for me to accept him drinking with his friends because he just never will drink with me. It hurts my feelings and I've brought it up before, but he just seems to make excuses as to why he won't. I've never been comfortable with any of it, but I knew it made him happy, so I always supported him. Now that he's made it hard for me to be friends with the people I want to be friends with, I have a hard time supporting the things he wants to do that I don't like because I don't have his support. I expressed I was upset he was going and I have nothing to do or no one to talk to because he had a problem with my friends. I got mad, I got sad, I got stressed, I cried, and he offered not to go, but I would never be the girlfriend who would ask him not to see his friends. He went to see his friends, and now I feel so hurt and angry and resentful towards him for going because I know that if he had expressed how upset he was, he wouldn't have had to ask me not to go. I just wouldn't have. I texted him explaining how I was mad and hurt and that I didn't know if I could speak to him right now. And all he said was he didn't know how upset I was, even though I literally told him. I feel like he gets to do whatever he wants, but I can't do what makes me happy. I know he loves me and I love him very much, but I'm just hurt and confused. I don't want to make either of us unhappy, but I feel like either we both get what we want or neither of us get what we want. Will only be the solutions, but they really don't feel like solutions. I need help.